Simbi stood in the middle of the crowded compound, trembling. Her voice rose above the noise, shouting, "Enough! I'm tired of this." But nobody seemed to hear her. People were too busy arguing, trading accusations, and glaring at one another. It was just another day at 32 Opeoluwa Street, a place where secrets, fights, and betrayal simmered under the surface, threatening to explode at any moment. When Simbi moved to 32 Opeoluwa Street, she had high hopes. She had finally saved enough money from her small tailoring business to rent a tiny room in the bustling heart of Lagos. The compound was packed, noisy, and full of life, just what she needed to start fresh. There were people everywhere, hawkers, children playing, mothers gossiping, and the occasional drunk men staggering past. It was messy, but it was home. Simbi was excited about the possibilities. Her plan was simple: work hard, keep her head down, and slowly build her business. But from the first day, she realized that living in the compound meant she was also stepping into a complicated world of unwritten rules, fierce loyalties, and silent wars. Simbi quickly learned that there was no such thing as privacy at 32 Opeoluwa Street. Neighbors pried into each other's lives, and every movement was noted, every word overheard. Simbi tried to mind her own business, but the compound had other plans. There was Mama Titi, the self-proclaimed queen of the compound, who loved to stir trouble. She had a loud mouth and a sharper tongue. If she wasn't shouting at her children, she was gossiping with the other women, spreading half-truths and stirring up drama. She took an immediate dislike to Simbi. Perhaps it was because Simbi was new, or maybe because she saw her as a threat. Whatever the reason, Mama Titi made it clear that Simbi was not welcome. And then there was Chinedu, the landlord's son. He was the worst of them all, a lazy, arrogant man who used his father's influence to bully everyone. He had no job and spent his days lounging around the compound, picking fights and making passes at the women. Chinedu's eyes landed on Simbi the moment she arrived, and his unwanted attention made her uneasy. "Fine girl like you need someone to protect you in this place," he said one day, flashing a sly smile. Simbi tried to ignore him, but Chinedu was persistent. Every rejection only made him angrier, and soon, his advances turned into threats. As the weeks passed, Simbi realized that the compound was a boiling pot of hidden conflicts. Families argued over water, children fought over play areas, and women competed in a silent war of gossip and influence. The compound had a way of magnifying even the smallest disagreements, turning them into full-blown confrontations. One evening, Simbi was sewing in her room when she heard shouting outside. She rushed out to see Mama Titi and Aya Malik locked in a heated argument. The reason? Mama Titi's daughter, Titi, had accused Aya Malik's son of stealing her slippers. It was a petty issue, but the fight quickly escalated. Words flew, insults were hurled, and soon the whole compound was involved. Simbi watched in disbelief as Mama Titi and Aya Malik were pulled apart, still screaming at each other. It wasn't just about slippers, it was about long-held grudges and simmering resentments. The fight ended, but the tension lingered, adding another layer to the toxic atmosphere of the compound. One fateful night, Simbi was returning from the market when she noticed Chinedu lurking near her door. He was drunk, his breath heavy with the smell of cheap alcohol. He blocked her path, slurring threats and lewd comments. "You think you're too good, we'll see who's boss here," he sneered. Simbi tried to push past him, but Chinedu grabbed her arm. Panic surged through her. In that moment, everything she had held in, the fear, the frustration, the constant harassment, came pouring out. She shoved him away with all her strength, and Chinedu stumbled backward, crashing into a pile of empty crates. The noise brought everyone out of their rooms. Neighbors gathered around, whispering and pointing. Chinedu, humiliated and furious, picked himself up and lunged at Simbi, but before he could reach her, some men pulled him back. "You don't own this place, Chinedu," one of the men shouted. It was Jide, a quiet, hard-working man who rarely got involved in the compound's drama. But tonight, he had seen enough. The confrontation was the final straw. Simbi knew she couldn't keep quiet any longer. She decided to speak up, not just for herself but for everyone who had suffered in silence. The next day, Simbi gathered the women in the compound. It wasn't easy, many were afraid of Chinedu and his father's power. But Simbi spoke with a fire in her voice that surprised even her. "We can't keep living in fear. This is our home too," she said. The women listened, nodding quietly. It was the first time anyone had openly challenged the status quo. Inspired by Simbi's courage, they began to share their own stories of bullying, harassment, and injustice that had been swept under the rug for too long. Together, they decided to confront the landlord. It was a risky move, but they had nothing left to lose. When they marched to his office, the landlord, an aging man with a permanent scowl, was taken aback. He had never seen such unity among his tenants. "What do you want?" he barked, but his bluster couldn't hide his unease. Simbi stepped forward, speaking calmly but firmly. "We want change. We're tired of the harassment, the fights, and the bullying. If you don't do something, we'll all leave. And good luck finding new tenants to live in this chaos." The landlord listened, his expression shifting from anger to realization. He knew that losing so many tenants would hurt his business, and the sight of a united group of tenants made him rethink his approach. He promised to deal with Chinedu and make the compound a safer place. True to his word, the landlord cracked down on Chinedu's behavior. Chinedu was given a stern warning and made to pay for the damages he caused. The changes didn't happen overnight, but there was a noticeable shift in the atmosphere. The compound, once filled with tension and fear, slowly became a more harmonious place. Neighbors began to look out for each other instead of plotting against one another. Simbi's shop flourished as people came to her not just for clothes, but for advice and support. She became a quiet leader in the community, someone who showed that even in the most difficult circumstances, standing up for yourself could spark change. The compound at 32 Opeoluwa Street wasn't perfect, it still had its moments of chaos, but it was no longer a place ruled by fear. Simbi had found not just a home, but a community that, despite its flaws, was willing to fight for a better life together. Living at 32 Opeoluwa Street taught everyone something about resilience and courage. The compound was a microcosm of the larger world, messy, complicated, but also full of possibilities for those willing to stand up and demand better. Simbi's journey from a quiet tenant to a community leader showed that sometimes, all it takes is one voice to spark a change. As for Simbi, she learned that bravery wasn't just about big acts, it was in the everyday choices to speak up, stand firm, and refuse to be silenced. And with each passing day, the compound grew a little closer, a little kinder, and a lot more like the home Simbi had always dreamed of. In the end, 32 Opeoluwa Street became a symbol of what could happen when people came together, broke down barriers, and fought for a common cause. It was messy, it was noisy, and it was far from perfect, but it was home. And that made all the difference.